Arte friends, welcome to Classics in Color, your weekly dive into some of the ancient world's wackiest facts. I'm Marc Graves, and today we're talking about mediums and trances and seances in the ancient world. And if you would like to learn more, you can always check out The Ancient Concept of Progress by E.E. Dodds. Let's get going. So I kind of had trouble structuring this video because all I have is a list of a lot of facts that are about random supernatural things in the ancient world. So they're really cool facts, and we're going to go through them, so let's just get started. The first group of them is about objects, basically. So although we don't have stories about crystal balls, we do kind of have the ancestors of crystal balls, a lot of shiny objects. So you could look into a mirror, and supposedly that was a way to stimulate the sort of mediumistic trance. And Pausanias, who's a travel writer, he goes all over the place and writes quaint little stories about everywhere he goes, says that in some places like Patras, you would hang a mirror over like a river or a pond or something, and then you get like double reflection, but you also get water magic that way. And when you look into that mirror, you can see how your disease is going to go, whether you're going to die or whether you're going to get better, right? And then in other regions, like in Andros, you would hold the mirror over the water, and then when you looked in it, you could see your future husband. So different traditions depending on where you are, which is neat. So I mentioned water magic, sometimes called hydromancy, and for that you would pour some water in a bowl, and then often you would pour a little bit of oil in that water as well, and that would create a film on top that, you know, is shiny and kind of cool looking. And you could look into that, and there's stories from Isidore of Alexandria. He recorded that there was a holy woman who could look into the water and predict the future, and there are some stories of people who not only saw things in the water but then would hear things as well, so it wasn't just visual somehow. Then we also have a very brief and kind of vague reference in Ammianus to something that sounds a lot like a Ouija board, and that it basically predicted that Theodorus was going to be the next emperor. So it's just really cool to see all these different objects as sort of rough ancestors of things that are tropes now in our modern world. So that's objects. Then as far as people go, Theorgist is a word that's often used for what we would call a medium in the ancient world. And the medium is actually usually someone who's considered kind of simple, like easy to manipulate. Sometimes children are used, like young people, and then they would have, I guess, a handler or like a manager who would make all the money and move them around and help induce their trance-like states in them, often through different rituals. So we have stories, for instance, of children being used. They're induced in these trances, and then they help clients find missing money and such. And then there are many effects of these trances. So you can see the future or see where things are in the present, help find things. But there's also insensibility to pain, insensibility to fire, so you can endure all kinds of crazy things and perform great feats. There's immobility, so you might be frozen. And sometimes you can get changes in their voices. And then apparently the Chaldean oracles could speak certain spells that would create that fire that was shaped like different things. So you could get something that was shaped like a boy with a voice coming from it, or you could get lights surrounding the medium. So all kinds of cool effects apparently could be initiated by the medium going into these trances. Then we get some stories of people performing what sounds a little bit like seances. Now, usually they're not trying to contact a dead mortal. They're actually trying to contact some sort of divine being or god. They're still really interesting. So we have one about the magician Giuliani, which is the great name to start with. And apparently he introduced his son to the ghost of Plato, claimed to possess a spell for producing an apparition of the god Kronos, and could also cause men's soul to leave and enter their body. And he also apparently made a mask of clay that I guess you could wear, and then it would discharge lightning bolts at the enemies of the Roman army. So very impressive magician guy who could make all sorts of souls appear and disappear, I guess. And then we also have a story from the life of Plottiness. Quick little quote I'm going to read for you now. When the spirit was summoned to appear, a god came, and not being a being of the spirit order. And the Egyptian said, "Blessed are you who have a god for your spirit and not a companion of the subordinate order." It was not, however, possible to ask any questions of the god or even to see him present for longer, as the friend who was taking part in the manifestation strangled the birds which he was holding as a protection, either out of jealousy or because he was afraid of something. This is a neat story that apparently takes place in the Temple of Isis. So there's a bunch of friends who all hold this ritual to try to attract a god, and they're successful. He does appear, but then one of the friends who was invited strangles these birds. And that is sort of a panic switch that's supposed to drive whatever appears away. If you kill something, it messes up the ritual. So apparently either he got spooked or he was just mad that something did show up, that it did work. So he killed the birds and ended it all before they got to have their real fun. So that's a neat story that we have as well. Thank you so much for checking out this video on seances in ancient Greece. I hope you had so much fun. I did. Thank you to patrons and to subscribers. I hope to see you all next week. Karate.